Someone learned that the hard way in one of our PCC meetings.
Thank you, Courtney.
All right. So yes, and speaking of that, I have opened up the chat. I mean, there's only a few of us right now, but as people join, know that you can heckle me if you wish. But as Diane mentioned, there's a record of it, so just know that. Okay. And my family wants to do family things a little bit later, so I'm going to try to keep this as brief as possible. As I think, I'll just go ahead and just verbally put this out so everyone can be on the same page really quick, and then I'll do some screen sharing and we can discuss. As mentioned, and I think everyone probably got the email last Monday that our council has opened up basically the guidance and the restrictions put on us as a scouting unit and what we can do and how we fit into the grid. And I actually just found it. The grid is called what is it? The Oregon Sector Risk Level Guidance Chart. Say that 10 times fast. And how we fit into that as a scouting organization, because for the past, 3 months or so, we've been told that when Oregon redefined this, that we do not fit in as a youth organization, as a youth program for a variety of reasons. And essentially a lot of that has changed. And I will preface this by saying, and this is from Bryce Horine, had a great observation last Thursday at our district meeting. And he basically said, it sounds like somebody kept asking questions until they got the answers they wanted, and then they stopped asking. So if it seems fractured, I think you might be right. So we do have the opportunity. Now, the reason I wanted to ask people to come in and be part of this discussion is because as a set of troops, and I'm glad, Dan, that you're here to represent Amy's troop, if nothing else, and chime in. So thank you. Appreciate it. Is we get to decide what we want to do going forward. We are not told you have to do this. We are now told you can do these things. So we're kind of back to, I guess, where we were in July or August, where we kind of came together and said, how do our families feel about, doing in-person patrol meetings and stuff like that? So does anybody else have any overarching questions or things that I missed on that?
Well, I have a comment. I read the link that showed like cohorts and the space requirements and all those things. And I may have interpreted it incorrectly, but the way I interpreted it is if you have a big enough space, and I think it was like so many feet by so many feet, their visual was to literally put cohorts in opposite corners of the court, if you will. And that's different than what we were doing. We were doing one cohort at a time.
You are correct.
And so
you interpreted that absolutely correctly. And this is something we need to talk about as an organization, is how far do we want to go with that?
Yeah. I listened. I was surprised today listening to I went back and listened to the recording, and it really seemed like they were being much looser about leaving it up to the interpretation of the units than they were last fall.
Yes.
Last fall it seemed like it was pretty strict and hard. You got to do it this way.
Yep.
And now it's like, hey, whatever you guys feel comfortable with, it's okay with us.
Well, and that also is like CDC or some of the guidelines still say in the moderate and the low to have, no more than 2 families, and they still have pretty a higher level of restrictions than BSA at this point.
Right, and so that's kind of where
let's just go with BSA.
Well, and again, that's what comes to us as a group of leaders that are trying to put on this youth program for scouts that want to be a part of this, and ask the question of what are we comfortable with at this point. And I think we can get there. So Diane, we will definitely get to that. And your point is absolutely spot on, that fundamentally, I think we're going to be back to a place really similar to where we were back in September, October, with some modifications. And some of those modifications might be more than one cohort. And what it comes down to, which you noticed, was that a lot of that indoor type meetings, they've basically said, go with what the meeting space allows, the space that you have.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why you saw those diagrams and a lot of measurements. And so it comes down to measure. We'll get there. So
Okay.
Dave, did you have anything else to add? You were kind of going to chime in there for a sec.
No, that was basically it. I mean, it was sort of the other thing was the one woman who was part of this task force or whatever, commenting on how her troop has been working. Is they seemed way more liberal with the rules than we've been operating, and it was like, and this is their kind of leadership. Oh, okay.
I actually happen to know that troop a little bit, and they have a family or two that is with council professionals in the family. So they probably got a little bit of a, okay, we're going to pilot program this. It's okay. Don't worry. Yeah. And they're actually right over here, not too far from where I live. They're in the northern part of Tigard, over not too far from the Shoals and Kenton intersection. Yeah, off of Roy Rogers, basically. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh no, this is sorry, 797, I think it is. So Jennifer Mooney has a daughter in the troop, so there might be something there. Okay, well, anybody else have any other thoughts or comments before we just blaze into the changes here? Mr. Goey, you feel?
I'll say one thing is that, as you probably all know, the kids have taken a really big hit in terms of their development and stuff, just socially, with school being locked down in perpetuity, and now the Scouts being locked down. So I'm for whatever freedom that we can grasp out of this. I know it's uncomfortable to have freedom at this point because we're so used to not having it now and being told what to do. But I think that if there's any leeway to allow the kids to interact, I don't mind that the adults keep their masks on, we can hold our breath, keep our masks on, don't sneeze, stay socially distant. We can all space out in the gymnasium. But I think that it would be really great for the kids to be able to count on a weekly time where they can get together and fool around with their buddies and, be kids again. I'm all for it.
And I think your sentiments are very much echoed by Amy and the girls. And I'm pretty sure Dan would agree to that from what I understand on the young ladies side, right, Dan? Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share this. This is, and if you watched Todd McDonald's Dog and Pony show with, I can't remember the pediatrician's name either, but this is the set of slides, and I'm just going to go through very briefly on some of the things. The first thing and I took some notes, so this is kind of where I'm going to start here. If anybody, I don't think anybody here is still working with the Cub Scout pack, but keep in mind that this relates only to troops, crews, posts, anything 11 years old and up, essentially. So packs have to still keep it locked down, unfortunately. I'm assuming everybody can see my screen, right? Everybody good? Okay, awesome. The first and most important thing is that we as a troop get to decide, and I hate the way they use tier so often, but basically to divide our things into 3 tiers and decide what level we are comfortable with. So the first tier is what we're doing right now, virtual meetings, pretty much 0 risk of anybody getting sick. Tier 2 being basically where we were back in September, meeting outside in small groups, cohorts, patrols. And that's still considered to be fairly low risk as long as we wear masks, we're physically distant, we use all the same basic protections and what's the word I'm looking for here? The processes we had in place back in August and September and October for meeting in, the Reynolds backyard, and Dave, your patrol was meeting at a park, I think it was. I forget.
Pilgrim Shelter.
Right. Okay, Pilgrim Shelter, and then we had one group meeting at an open area. And I think Amy's girls were meeting in someplace. I don't remember where.
In her backyard.
Oh, okay. There you go. And so that's fundamentally tier 2 is we're meeting in person finally, and it's outside, and that's still considered low risk, not 0, but low. And then of course, what we were started to do with rotations of patrols going into the gym at Pilgrim Lutheran once a week. That's more of the some risk tier 3. And so when we get into that of indoors, that's where you start to see that measuring the space, making a plan for how people are going to come in and go out, and never paths will cross. The adults aren't going to just hang out, and you're not going to have like, a zillion adults along with everybody else in the patrol meetings. That they can be on their own off to the side or be their own cohort, basically, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And then there are camping rules, which is completely separate. We can go camping. As I know, we're all very excited to go camping again soon. And I think, Dan, if Amy is not aware, please make sure that next time you meet that she knows that the council is opening cohort camping in March. Last time we talked about this, I was not sure. And we just got confirmation. I don't know, you might have seen an email about that just recently. Anybody else get an email? Okay.
Well, I was snooping around on the website for cohort, and I noticed that the only Cooper and Butte Creek were listed, but that was what was for last year. And so it made me think, I hope they're opening Meriwether and some of our go-to. Do you have any insight on that?
The first one they're opening is Meriwether, and it will open in March. And Dave, do you want to just forward Diane that email? I know you have it somewhere because you were the one looking it up. Thank you.
I can do that. In fact, I will. Who else? Does everybody else have it or no?
Why don't you throw it at Amy and Dan here also, just to make sure that everyone's aware. You good with that, Dan?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you know when they're going to open for signing up then? Because it seems like that will be pretty competitive when that on the go.
So
you
can fill out the form today. It is much more like some of the stuff that we're doing, I want to say in August, September, where you fill out a form, submit it, and they'll get back to you if it's possible. Right? So you can put in your submission today. So,
right.
And I know Mr. Hardman here is chomping at the bit to make a reservation for early March. And one of the Narwhals patrols looking at going in late March. So we're going to start putting our requests in very soon. Okay. So yeah, and every tier has different restrictions on the size of number of people. I mean, really it comes down to, for a while, we're still going to be operating as cohorts. And that's okay, because I think as much as we've lost a little bit of our troop culture, maybe, I think it's okay that we can lean on the patrol method here and that kind of thing. So I'm not going to belabor the virtual meetings. We've done it enough. We know how that works. Meeting outdoors is very, very similar to what we were doing before. I think it's 10 youth or less. And where are my notes here? 10 youth or less, no more than 3 adults as part of the meeting. If there are more adults that don't want to go home and come back, they can be off to the side in their own sub cohort or wait in the car or something like that. And even if we have, and we've kind of talked about this before, if we were to have cohorts in a common space, like a big park or something, you would want to have those cohorts separated into their own areas, right? And a lot of this stuff, wear a mask, health screening upon arrival. This really tracks what we were doing previously. Restricting participation. Yeah, so that's checking, asking as people come in, how you feeling? Is everybody feeling okay? Anybody been sick? Take attendance. Interesting that, I don't know, Dave, if you've noticed this, but Todd McDonald went on and on a little bit about how signatures don't matter. It doesn't really, I mean, there's no harm in it, right? Did you catch that part?
Yeah.
I don't know.
He was really soft in a couple areas that surprised me.
Yeah.
So
I think it comes down to the fact that a parent signature isn't really binding, but I kind of like the fact.
He went on to say it's really just to make sure that everybody's really clear as to how we're operating. Right?
Yes,
and so
exactly.
Just understand what's going on, and so the signature just says, "Well, yeah, I read and understand it," but it's really not the signature that counts.
So I'd like to keep our sign-in form that we were using last year about the same. With what's the scout's temperature, and have the parent sign them in and make sure that the parent knows that, as Dave said, that this is how we're doing things, and take a little bit of ownership in that. Meeting indoors is, again, really similar. It's probably one of the higher risks things we'll be doing. And one of the most important things I took out of it is, and Diane, to speak to your comment, that given a substantial amount of space, we can have cohorts in different areas of the indoor space. But one of the things that we can't do, as an example, would be to set up 4 stations and rotate. That's not okay. If you have a cohort come in and then leave, and then another cohort come in and use the space is supposed to be sanitized and cleaned and disinfected essentially between cohort uses. So we have to be careful about that kind of thing. We have to be careful about, I think, our scouts coming into the gym and grabbing a basketball and going to town or whatever, right? We have to make that very clear to the scouts that this is still not normal, unfortunately, even if we happen to have.
I was a little surprised he didn't talk about, we also want to sort of damp down the level of physical activity, and because that's really clear if you look at the state guidelines for youth programs,
right?
You know, they said it's okay for people to come together and use the space, but we don't want them, you know, playing basketball or bumping into each other, and that kind of
breathing hard on each other and trading sweat.
Exactly.
And whatever. Yeah, exactly.
To me, that's the real limit to how many people we could put in the gym at once, because at some point it won't be controllable.
Well, and there's also the acoustics of the gym.
Yeah.
If we do try to put all 4 patrols in different corners, it's not going to be productive for anybody.
Yeah.
And so I think we have to ask ourselves exactly how far we want to go with that. So don't let me forget about that. We'll come back to that one for sure, and kind of decide where we're at. Again, wearing a mask is still required. The health screening, they're calling it, the check-in, attendance taking, and I think it was Todd McDonald recommended that all of our records of attendance for in-person events be kept for at least 6 weeks. So if there's any question of who contacted who up to, you know, a month and a half plus ago, we want to keep all that. So that's something to keep in mind. Report exposures, anything like that. And this is where it gets fun, is going camping. We can go camping. Again, it has to be in a cohort basis. I think the restrictions are very similar to outdoor patrol meetings. I didn't quite catch the exact number, but I think a patrol with a handful of adults is probably fine.
Yeah, he went into it. Well, he said it really depends on where you are camping.
Because
so in Tillamook County, where Meriwether is, they're in
low or medium.
They're in low risk.
Low.
So we can have up to, I think it was up to 12, any combination adding up to 12.
You can eat inside a restaurant there.
I know, right?
Well, we can eat inside a restaurant by Friday. Friday is when the world opens up again around
at least a little bit. And Dave alluded to one of the major differences, what we're looking at now versus where we were at back in July, is we were told in no explicit terms, your restrictions are based on where you live, not where you're going. And this is a 180, that your restrictions, if we were to go to, for example, Meriwether, the restrictions on the number of people and what we can do are absolutely based on the Tillamook state, the state of the world in Tillamook, low, high, medium, whatever, which feels a little bit weird, but that's what we're being told. So we're going to go with it. And I would recommend for sure, those of you who support cohorts, patrols, Amy's group, the whole bit, I would keep Washington out of your sights for a little while. They're even more restrictive than Oregon is. I'd recommend not going over the river to the north just for funsies. And I have no idea what's going on out there. I just know it's more restrictive. And again, washing your hands a lot. The same things that we were practicing, I know, as cohorts, fewer people cooking as possible, and to keep that sort of a cohort cooking thing. Having adults in a separate area, kind of. We did this at Baldwin when we were with the narwhals, and to take precautions, wearing masks as much as possible, all that kind of stuff. Let's see. One of the new things, one person at a time in the restroom. So, and this might be something that comes into play at Pilgrim. I don't remember that explicitly stated before, but that is something that we should be very aware of now, that when we use Pilgrim, one human at a time inside the restroom. eating by cohort. Let's see. Let's skip Cub Scouts. And okay, so tips for running the meetings here. This is a lot of the stuff that we had before. And this particular slide that he put up is a little confusing because he still has the social stuff at the top, the at home or indoors and outdoors that we were adhering to previously. Those first two rows don't apply anymore, as far as I'm aware. And I was going to ask him at some point why those were on there. I have a feeling that Todd goofed up a little bit and he wanted to try to put the stuff on that does matter. So as an example, if we're in, but that third row there, the outdoor recreation and fitness stuff, I think that's what we fall into when we go camping, paired with the column based on what the state of that county is, the risk level of that county. Did I interpret that right? Do you guys get that same thing for camping?
The third row, he was saying that was a facilities thing, right? The outdoor recreation. So that was applied to how Meriwether was being managed.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. So if you're going to Meriwether.
Yeah, but it's not for the unit itself. It's for the total.
Oh, it's for right. It's for this. Okay, for Meriwether as a site. Okay. And since they're currently in lower risk, I mean, they're at max capacity. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, recruitment, blah, blah, blah. Let's see. And this goes back to what Diane and Dave have been talking about, that we could actually go draw in terms of using an indoor facility like Pilgrim, go draw it out, measure it, and start to figure out square footage per person, how much space we can use.
I've already done that.
You've already done that. Yes. Yay for Dave. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I don't know what the dimensions are.
Well, the simple answer, I just looked up the dimensions of a basketball court.
Oh, yep. Okay. That's a good start.
It's way more than enough. So we're going to be limited more by what we can construct, what we can do noise wise, and also just keeping employees settled down, or units settled down, which
okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing that because that's kind of, I think it's exhausted its usefulness. I'm going to take
about 100 by the way, it's about 100 by 60.
Okay.
600 square feet in there, or 6,000 square feet.
That's sizable.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first thing that we want to decide, oh, here's Ellen, is Ellen, you missed the best part.
You missed the best part. I just did my puzzles with the pack.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so we went through and talked about, I'm sure you probably read up on the changes and stuff, right?
I did not. I've been too busy dealing with all the cheaters.
Oh dear. Wow.
Yes.
Whole mess of them. I eat lunch with cheaters now and try to steer them to the path of rightness.
That does not sound like fun.
Today's lunch was actually pretty good. I got through to a girl.
Well, let me go back to this. We have a Joel now, which is awesome. Good evening, Joel.
Hey.
So I just kind of went through a real brief overview with the folks that were here on time. And I think the first thing that as an organization we need to decide, and this is kind of the recommendation, is number one, what level of risk are we willing to accept for our activities? And again, back to sort of the tier one, the no risk virtual meeting is what we're doing now. Tier two was very much what we were doing previously with outdoor patrol meetings before we were in Pilgrim. And there is some risk there of meeting in person, even if you're masked and even if you're distant. But I think it's proven out that that's probably a fairly low risk. And then tier three, what they're calling tier three here, is a moderate level of risk where you're meeting indoors and people are still masked, they're still physically distant, but we are inside. And then of course the follow-on question to that is there any reason why we shouldn't allow cohorts, to go camping at their discretion, again, given all the guidelines. So my personal opinion is I'd like to see us open up to all these things, for each of our patrols to individually decide what they want to do and engage in those activities. If they want to meet in person, I think that's great. I'm a little leery about indoors, very much like what Dave was saying. And I think gosh, was it Mr. Goey or Dan? I forget. Somebody else kind of echoed the comments of it's going to be hard to make that work with certainly any more than one cohort, one patrol, given the acoustics and all that kind of stuff. But I wanted to open it up in terms of the risk level tiers and activity to the group and discuss what everybody thinks at this point. Anything to comment?
I have a comment. The committee could send out a survey to all of the parents, not just the leadership, to get their comfort level. I know that we can do it in our own cohorts, but the kids are going to potentially answer differently than the parents, and ultimately it comes down to the parents, right? And so that could be one way. And then you were talking about the noise. I would say that it's the same thing. It's just like any other scout meeting when we were in the gym. We didn't go to separate rooms when we had scout meeting. Well, geez, I'm trying to remember. That was what, a year ago?
That was a while back.
But I mean, the noise.
And part of that is that like Amy's troop with the girls would go into the cafeteria area, and so they could actually get stuff done. And I mean, the boys were a little more loud and crazy, and they could go out into the foyer if they wanted to, or something like that. And right now we're going to be restricted into not doing those things, right?
Yeah. Some of the things I think of, one of our last we had a rope in one of our last meetings for a tug of war. Do you remember that? What if we put a rope and squared it off and said, hey, stay within your court, right? I think the biggest hindrance, I'm speaking for Connor, is trying to keep those kids off of basketballs when they get there. That's going to be hard.
Well, I agree with you, Dan. I think the noise thing is one of those things that we had before and we dealt with it, and I think you're right. There's ways of dividing things up and setting up rules, whether it's not crossing a rope or not touching a basketball. Part of scouting is to obey the rules. And so we're fortunate enough to have this opportunity, and we're going to be responsible with it. And that's why the adults are there to just make sure things are going the right way. And obviously we'll be wearing masks as well. So, it won't be as loud with the masks on.
Well, and I can see the parent cohort, how the parents are going to have to stay out of the gym. Sometimes, parents might go to their car, but it may be prudent to have at least two parents kind of stick around so that they are the bathroom patrol. Hey, there's one person in there, or they are the, the hallway monitor, like in high school.
Move along.
Stop
right?
touching, or,
Okay. So, okay. Can I go to Dave first? Dave had a comment he wanted to make, then I'll go to Ellen.
Thanks.
Yeah, see, it was a while ago, so I have to remember what it was.
Sorry, Dave.
In the past, following up with Diane's comment about we worked and it was things, but generally what we did before, though, was most of the meeting was a troop meeting. It wasn't patrol meetings, separate patrol meetings. So there was one focus of attention for the whole group. So that makes it a lot easier, right? If you have three things going on at once, it's definitely going to be more challenging.
Be four things.
Well, yeah, it depends on
what Amy wants. Let's make the assumption it's 4 cohorts that we're running.
Yeah, it's 4 cohorts.
What if we did them
hold on. Let's look.
They had okay.
Then can we have Ellen go first before we?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead,
Ellen. So if we are trying to work towards a system where we would have multiple patrols meeting indoors on the same night, I think one thing we might want to consider leading up to that is maybe one rotation through the patrols where each patrol has a week at Pilgrim, where part of that is being in that space and talking very honestly with the scouts about what would be expected if we're planning to meet with more patrols, and kind of setting the guidelines where it's a small group, where it's, you know, it's not going to explode out into chaos so easily, but where it's really deliberately pre-planned to explain what would be expected for the larger group thing.
I really like that idea.
And if those have hiccups, then I say we do another rotation of that until we actually feel like we have a group that will follow the rules.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. It's kind of a proof of concept, and we reestablish, you know, come back after a full rotation and ask, is this working? And can we shift to the next and have 2 patrols on opposite corners? And is that working? And after a while, right? I really like that thought process of let's take it one step at a time. And I think that's very much worth looking into. Ellen, do you have anything else to add to that?
Well, just I think we do, like, well, we need to check with Amy about how she feels about wanting to use that space. But I think it's a particular noise concern in the spirit of family scouting, that like the girls, the group of girls that we have tend to have very quiet voices, and it could be really hard for them to hear each other in the gym with the other patrols talking at their typical volumes.
I think that's definitely
so if we're all wanting to use the space, we might think of like 2 and 2 and swap it. That would be a compromise between completely separating and just doing one patrol at a time.
That's a good point. Diane, what did you have something to add there a minute ago? Sorry, I'm gonna try to keep up with everyone.
I just write it down so I forget.
Oh, that works.
Right?
Go ahead.
So I do have like a speaker thing if we were ever to do
a bullhorn.
Kind of, yeah. And imagine that. And
is that really necessary?
You're right. Family reunions. No, but
sanitize between users.
Yeah. If we were to have it as a function of the same topic, but you know, the speaker is just speaking to the whole gym, right? So that's an idea. Do we have we don't have access to any of the rooms? Is that what I'm hearing? Like the mini cafeteria or that art room?
I'm going back to essentially where we were back in September, October, where we had access to the gym, and there was discussion of potential for the use. But Dave, you can speak to this. The last I heard was
I believe we have to add. I have to go back and ask, but I believe we would also have access to the little lunchroom.
Okay.
You could have somebody in there.
And that is a substantially smaller room. So
it's a substantially smaller, and if you're trying to keep 6 feet, it's going to have it. You know, I don't think the.
I don't know, but
there were specific room sizes that they talked about though in that presentation. What was
for
and
me
does
personally,
it matter if some of them are related to each other too? Like the Vermilions could theoretically sit next to each other, right?
I don't think so, because at some point you're still operating as a cohort, even if it's you know 2 family members and then 3 others, you're still just a cohort. And yeah, I mean you're right. Part of them are living together, but I don't think that changes the risk factor greatly.
It's still 35 square feet per person indoors. That's 6 feet squared, right?
Right.
So
I mean, for me, I have a hard time visualizing, as an example, the Cool Cats patrol fitting into that room right now.
I think
so.
Hey, we have to be careful. Into the room.
Yeah, that's the flip side. And maybe Amy's girls would fit into the room fine, given that there are, I think, 6 or 7 right now coming up soon. So we have to evaluate that as we go.
Yeah.
Well, and this is for a different discussion for a different day, but as we are doing recruitment, and I don't know how many scouts are going to be potentially crossing over, do we have a date? What's that?
Well, and isn't it, well, we'd have a date for the girls, but but both of the girls that are crossing over won't be 11 until later.
I think we can kind of wave our hands a little bit at that. I mean, when's Rosie's birthday? Like June or something?
Rosie's May, Mina's June.
Yeah, I mean,
isn't it if they cross over or 11? It's not both.
No,
well, that's for the scout rules. For these rules, it's
Oregon Health Authority basically, and this is the page 2 of that document, Dan, is Scouts BSA youth ages 11 to 18. For some
Oh,
reason, they divided that. This is
But
Oregon
that's
Health
not
Authority.
special to scouts. That's what their
No.
like the youth program
Yeah.
guidelines are.
So if you're in a soccer club or something that's able to meet outside, it's the same. It's 11 or above. It's an Oregon thing.
What culture do they have conception as the date of birth? Maybe that'll be about 9 months, right?
You going for some Far
We're
East
good?
thing of conception? Yeah, okay.
Oh my goodness, that's hilarious.
I happen to know.
Ellen's doing the
I
math
happen to-
over
They're
here.
wise beyond their years.
I happen to know the when and the where for
Oh.
well, actually for both.
Oh
TMI.
my gosh, TMI. But on a
Back
serious,
to the meeting.
yeah, on a serious note, do we have for the boys a date of when there is potential cohort restructuring? I'm sure it has to happen
yeah.
before summer camp.
Yeah, Joel, you and James put that together in terms of it was part of the annual planning, part of the patrol restructuring and all that, right? I thought it was sometime in April we're looking at that. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it's late March.
Yeah. And we haven't made a decision at all about if we want to keep the new scouts together for a couple of weeks or a month like we did last time. I'm guessing we might not, given that if we are already going to restructure the patrols, we may as well just get the scouts in, fully immersed, right? Joel, did you have any comments on that?
Well, I guess one thing to think about, and if we have particular families whose risk tolerance is particularly limited, you may want to group,
Right.
Yeah. So that was,
and that's something that we have time to actually, as Diane was suggesting, do a survey, see where everybody's at, and see if we have those. The one family I know of that was concerned about that has moved to a different troop. So is there somebody else that I don't know who's also concerned about that?
I don't know what Jeff's family's level is, but I kind of think, I mean, it's, and I haven't, so it's kind of personal, obviously.
Okay.
But
it's worth asking the question, right?
I think we should survey parents. I think Jeff is also like, he's the one that takes off and does a lot of this outdoorsy stuff anyway. So,
he's going to be getting out there as soon as possible.
Well,
he
is.
He is.
Weekend and,
yeah, good for him.
So I think it's just a matter of that is a moving range with him. So do we have to keep quarantine for 2 weeks post cohort shuffle?
Probably. Yes, I think that would be a good idea.
Hardin has his hand up.
Does he?
In the chat, he didn't actually use the other thing. But
Hardin, you can just unmute yourself and blabber.
Well,
okay.
I didn't want to just blabber, and I don't know where the hand thing is.
Thank you, Ellen. Go ahead.
Just
Hardin.
my 2 cents on the keeping the newer scouts together. I think that's a good idea. In fact, I kind of think that the group that like Will is in got broken up a little too soon. I know that was what our plan was, but considering everything went to online, that was a lot of stress on them. And I think that
you think that
they're
helped?
not as engaged because they don't have their friends anymore. And then they got split up into other patrols. And
yeah, I know that's true
now, so.
with a couple of the scouts from that age. I know at least one or two that have commented to me that I don't have any of my friends in my patrol. And part of that is how scouting is kind of supposed to work. But then again, we didn't do the best job of putting a few scouts with people to keep them. However, they haven't left. So there's that. And Amy's not going to have that issue at the very least, because we have, I think, at least 2 to 3 girls coming in potentially. There was another lead, Ellen, that we got through the beascout.org. So it could be as many as 3. And that lead was an 11-year-old. I don't know if you heard that. So she might have 3. Who knows? But between Hardin and Joel and Dave and Diane, I very much trust you 4 as the core program folks to make kind of a determination of whether or not that's advisable. I do believe this time around we're going to have 2 or 3 from 162 at some point, a handful from 685, a handful from maybe other places. They might come in fits and spurts this year.
Well,
And that could make it more challenging.
that's kind of typical, actually.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Makes it really tough to do the simulation.
Last year we got most, like 90% of the herd in one shot, and it was different than usual. So that's worth thinking about.
So one thing I just hit me is if we have to do essentially a 3-week quarantine from each other after we reshuffle patrols, then that's going to blow these like March campouts.
Well, and that's a good example for maybe why we should do
it right away.
a 2-week and do it a little bit beforehand, so that we transition to virtual meetings for, it's essentially a week, I think, wouldn't
2
it be?
weeks, right? It's 2. I said 3.
I think it was 2, to do a
But,
couple weeks of virtual.
Can
and
we
then
make one of those weeks spring break? Does that help?
Well, I know the narwhals are planning on going camping during spring break, right? So,
Well, right, but like they're planning that for the very end of March. If we're reshuffling patrols at the end of March, then do they even have a patrol to camp with?
Exactly.
I think we need to pin down some actual dates, and if it means a camp out needs to move,
and there's even more to this also, in that I know that the Cool Cats, no, I'm sorry, I don't know about the Cool Cats. I know that Diane and the Internet Exploders and the Pierce family have been looking really hard at April, May, June, right, Diane? Even in July?
We've actually made reservations for June and July.
Right. And under the assumption that the Cool Cats would exist at that point and want to go camping to those places. So there has to be
the internet. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Internet Exploders. Yeah.
Well, and I guess we're under the assumption that as we reshuffle, we're the patrol that would have people added in, because we're I don't know how many other people have, but we have
your meeting was small yesterday.
We kept on, like my son logs off and he's kind of like, well, we don't have half the people here, so I don't feel like being here, so it's hard to keep the kids motivated on the online because they have a door out.
Right. And I know for sure that Joel's been thinking about that a lot. We've talked about that a little bit and how this is going to work. And honestly, I think that's a topic for a different day. And I think we should focus on the program elements at some point and how we're going to do that. But that's worth thinking about in this whole operation of, we are allowed to do these things. At what point do we tell the patrols, okay, let's pull back for a little bit so we can change, readjust, and then move forward? And that's definitely something I'd like to see a discussion on.
So one thing I'm thinking is that we've got a pretty big shift here potentially with this in-person meeting. And if we add in patrol rebalancing at the same time, I think we're setting ourselves up for a little potential failure, because right now everybody in the patrol is kind of used to their patrol. And I think meeting more together one-on-one and camping and whatnot is going to be well received. Maybe push rebalancing out a little bit, like to April. We still have plenty of time before camp for them to connect. We also get closer to when the new scouts are coming in, probably, right? I mean, when do they come in?
Most will be in already.
I would expect by spring break that we have our majority of our folks. We had
the 685 is talking about crossovers right around spring break.
Yeah, I
don't know about John Riggs, by the way, about his thing.
By the way, I just checked with James, and it's currently scheduled that the new patrols would start meeting March 29th, the last Monday in March. But
okay, that's worth thinking about. And if it would make sense to push that out, I'm not going to say that should or shouldn't happen, but that's worth
March
considering.
29th is really close to, April. So that's kind of, it's not a bad time frame.
Yeah, and if all the patrols get a camp out done between now and then.
Yeah, that's not bad. Okay,
last hurrah.
Last hurrah as a patrol before you change your name and your identity. Okay, so Diane has at least my first action item of sending out a survey, which I'm sure is going to mirror what we did in July. And I'm a little bit, I wouldn't say I'm reticent, but I guess it's probably good to check in again. Does anybody have any reason why we shouldn't do another survey at this point?
I guess I think it's good to check in and give people a platform to express concerns. I think I wouldn't necessarily mirror that one because I think we kind of have some ideas of what's likely. I think it might be more like, you know, if our patrols start meeting together in person, does your family have any hesitance to participate? If we start meeting in person at the gym as a patrol, does your family have any hesitance to participate? If multiple patrols meet together and kind of figure out if there's a line there, because that's different than the kinds of things we were asking in the summer.
True. Yeah. Okay. So focus on those tiers of risk, and then
well, and I guess camping is another thing to threat. Like if there's anybody that wouldn't, but with the idea that camping would still be tenting separately and
and in cohorts,
I mean,
not as a troop.
Yeah.
And okay, so let me go back to, is there anybody here in this call that has hesitancy for any of those tiers of risk? Meeting in person indoors, going camping. Does anybody here think we can't pull that off safely? Come now.
My only hesitation would be to see the whole troop in the gym at the same time. I would be.
Okay. So noted. And I agree. Yeah.
I have something along those lines when you're.
No, go ahead, Dan. Now's a good time.
Just that, when they show the outdoor being the lowest risk, that we should try to aim for the lowest risk whenever possible. So being, if we can meet outside, say it's not raining, then there's no reason to meet in the gym. If we could meet outside, and have a common meeting area.
Sure. Yeah.
So I don't know, something, I just keep thinking along those lines that, like we keep trying to fit in the gym, but do we really need to fit in the gym if it's, not raining or whatever else?
And that goes back to the fact that scouting is an outdoor activity, right? So let's go outside and do this scouting thing. I agree completely.
Yeah. Well, and, some of our patrols might get excited if we say, okay, like, yeah, you're talking about this, camp out at the end of March, and that's great. They can planning a camp out. That's what they should be doing.
Yep.
But if we can say, and you could also get together and do Frisbee golf on a Saturday before that, like some of these real simple day activities that they want to do, they just stop planning them because the answer was no,
Yep, I know.
We could also do some,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, if we were gonna go outside on a Monday night, we could, bring some Dutch ovens and stuff like that and make it kind of fun.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're going to have monkey bread or whatever.
I'm down with that right here.
Lemon cake.
There you go. I like it.
That could be a good activity if when we have the people that cross over.
Yes.
And I know I'm hearing people saying that they're not ready to have us flood the gym, right? But maybe we meet at Pilgrim, under this tree and this tree and this tree, hope for sunshine, and it's going to be springtime, so we might have a good chance. Bring your lawn chair. What a better way to welcome the new scouts.
I definitely agree with that. And the challenge is that weather is hit and miss, and we do have some pop-ups, but 10 by 10 doesn't cover much in terms of trying to stay distant from people. You fit about 3 scouts and an adult under a 10 by 10 if you're lucky.
On the corner.
And in the corners, exactly.
I only think of the gyms because of, this time of year with the snow and all that stuff. We were meeting in our driveway, and it was kind of a pain to set up, the structure, the covers and pull stuff in and out of the garage and whatever. So whatever.
Oh, I just thought of something I wanted to address. Hardin, you had a comment earlier about the first year scouts and keeping them together, and I wanted to say I completely agree with your assessment in terms of how it, I think, helped us keep those scouts in the program. However, there's a big difference, I think, this year with the trajectory of this virus, where we were, 11 months ago, and we were headed down into an unknown hole. And I think it made a big difference to be able to keep those scouts together as much as possible. And now there's light at the end of the tunnel. And I really hope that changes the perspective of, I mean, not only me, but the scouts as well, and that we're going to be getting back to doing things hopefully as soon as possible.
Well, I
Even if it
mean, I
is-
hope so too, but I'm
Right.
just saying that my 2 cents is that if we do end up having to go back to, God forbid,
right,
online
lockdown.
stuff, they need all the connection they can get to their friends.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. And I'll let, like I said before, I'll go ahead and let Joel and you Assistant Scout Masters decide. But I really do hope that we're on the upswing, and that, you know, if we do go cohort camping, that even if, you know, Tommy Tenderfoot doesn't have his 3 best friends, that he'll have somebody he likes and be learning good things. So, okay, back to action items. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to, like you were to ask, you know, does anybody here have concerns? Which is kind of just doubling up on what Dave said, but like I don't think I would be comfortable with all 4 patrols meeting together indoors on the same night until I see what it's like to have 1 or 2.
Yeah. Okay.
That's that's the thing that I need to see.
Yeah. So that's a great segue. What I'd like to do is
there's one more concern that I want to mention.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please,
but I don't
go ahead.
know if it came up, but as more and more families become vaccinated or members of families become vaccinated, I think it might be worth us being really clear in whatever guidelines we're putting forth to people, like, you know, if you become vaccinated, like you still have to wear a mask, or you have to, you know, like just kind of
the rules don't change. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think like maybe that's particularly like I think our youth really need like black and white rules for those things that involve safety.
I agree. Yeah. And that's not spelled out.
And you can blame me for the snow, because my vaccine's scheduled for Saturday, so that's why it's gonna snow.
Ours is tomorrow.
And do you have to drive to Salem, or are you closer?
It's Convention Center.
Okay. Nikki got hers at Marion County Fairgrounds. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree. And that's a great point. Let's be very clear that the rules don't change, even if you have received a vaccine. And yay for you. That's amazing that you received a vaccine, but the rules still don't change. And that's a great point actually to drive home as we're going through the first round through the Pilgrim Gym, maybe. And that, you know, basketballs are off limits, and yeah, your mom got a vaccine. That's awesome. That doesn't change the need for a mask, or et cetera, right? And distancing and all that. So what I'd like to
just like going to school. It'll be just like going to school. They can't, when we get to that point, you know, they can't just not go with their mask on.
Okay, so what I'd like to do is have a plan of attack, and I'd like, you know, we have a virtual campfire planned. I think, you know, going forward with that is still a great idea. You know, especially because we're going to have Cub Scouts potentially and all those things. But I'd like to put in place let's try to start doing in-person meetings as the patrols are comfortable, as well as doing a rotation through the gym, 1 patrol at a time. Dave, what do you think? And I don't know if we didn't get a firm date, I don't think, but do you have a beat on, or an idea of when we might be able to start that? Would it be
the next week, Monday.
15th? 15th? Yeah. Okay.
Next Monday's President's Day. They might not even have school.
Well, they won't have school, but
there'll still be a building. There'll still be a building.
We
have the code.
We normally meet on President's Day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so let's do this. Let's see. I'd like to reach out to Amy. Dan, did the girls meet last week?
They met last night.
Okay. Sorry,
like
last night.
On Zoom.
Okay. I'd like to reach out to Amy to see if she would like to start us off, because I think of all the cohorts, I feel like the girls are suffering the most.
That's just we've been I tried to I know Amy know.
Yeah,
it was too soon. Not enough time.
That was a quick turnaround. Trying. I appreciate the effort. I just my gut instinct is that the girls are really having a hard time, and not to say the boys aren't having a hard time, but we've lost female scouts because of this, because we haven't been meeting in person. So I'd like to try to get that first. Does anybody have an objection to that? Does that sound okay? All right.
They'll
And
get it
then-
twice though
Lady.
next month, right?
Good
Because
for
of the
them, right? So 15th, let's just see if Amy wants to.
However, yeah, I would just say if we can get an answer on that quickly, like if they don't, like if it's just, you know,
right, then
not-
we rotate
not
it
in the
forward.
cards, like maybe get another group in there so it's like the girls don't just lose their chance, right?
Yeah, okay.
There might
And let's
be a patrol that could jump on it.
let's go through the list. Cool Cats, I think, being the largest, would probably need the next
We've had
meeting.
one scout drop out completely until we meet again in person. It's been out for 2 months.
I'm aware, yes, and I'd like to see that scout come back. I think they'll come back.
Yeah,
I think.
I think so too, but
So how about we do Cool Cats February 22nd, and then Internet Exploders the week after that, which is what, March something. Help me out here. March 1st.
March
And that-
1st.
That puts the Narwhals March 8th. Okay. And I think honestly with where the Narwhals are, they spend most of their time talking about Minecraft. They'll be fine.
Our group-
But
okay.
But are all patrols allowed to plan an outdoor gathering if
Okay.
they want to?
That's my next point, is that beyond that, if and then I want to leave it up to the patrols, that if they want to meet in, say, Mom's gym or under cover somewhere, that's up to the patrol. And I would ask the ASMs to work with their patrol leader to ask to ascertain what that's going to be, where it's going to be, and all that kind of stuff. Does that make sense? Joel, are you okay with that? Harden, I don't see your face. I see everyone else nodding. You good?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay. So the option is on the patrol. So if the patrol wants to meet virtually, that's fine. We'll make that happen. And then I guess the question becomes, when we come back around to troop meeting week, how are we going to handle that? Because that's supposed to be another.
Didn't we do like one patrol as a group a month? Gosh, seems like so long ago. Like we were doing 2 Zoom meetings, and I don't even remember.
So what
I
we
give
were
up.
doing for a while, Diane, is we had the boys troop meeting virtually over Zoom while Amy's girls were meeting in the gym. And then the
Mhm.
other 3 for the boys were patrol meetings. Remember? Does that ring a
Mhm,
bell?
mhm.
I think we had that
Yeah,
cadence for about a month or a month and a half. It was working
Yeah,
okay.
Less than that.
There was one meeting in there where we all met on Zoom, though. Seems like I remember that.
We had the
know,
Court
as-
of Honor that was sort of a hybrid in-person Zoomy thing, right? It wasn't Zoom. It was just
so
in
what I
person.
think Diane's referring to is the plan was once every 4 weeks, it's going to be a troop-wide meeting, and the other 3 weeks are going to be patrol meetings.
Right.
What's happened is
Oh, yeah.
those two forms of meetings have kind of become one form, because we start with the troop together. And
Okay.
we do patrol breakouts, but it seems a lot like the other patrol meetings.
Because we
There hasn't
see
been a lot of
everybody.
troop content.
I
Okay.
remember we did
Yeah.
the Zoom meeting when the girls had the gym that week. That was when the boys all came together, and then we did our own.
You caught up.
thing. Yeah.
You're back. Yes, exactly. Now, it kind of messes up our cadence a little bit because Amy didn't get into the route to the building last week. And I still want to offer her that first time around because I think she's going to benefit from it the most. Joel, you want to work with James and see what he wants to do with that, the cadence? If he wants to let the troop meeting slide out an extra week, I know that might mess up the schedule. What do you think?
Well, I think we need to redo the meetings anyway.
Okay.
This like every 2 weeks for the PLC and then the troop meeting, I'd rather have it be on a consistent day of the month
Okay.
or week of the month. I mean, that's what I
Mhm.
mean to say.
Okay.
Instead of this kind of, it's hard for me to know 2 months from now when anything's going to be, because
Right.
it's this weird cadence. So I think
Okay.
it's time to redo the cadence and say,
Okay.
every first of the month, every second of the month, whatever, or something like that.
Well, I need to do the same with committee meetings, to be honest. So consider yourself having been given lots of room and lots of slack to go make that happen. Okay.
Okay.
Work with James. Let's do something good here.
To me, I think a bigger problem is that nobody expected these Zoom meetings to go on for nearly this long, and
Yep.
they really are dragging, right? And
Yep.
so it's, what do you do in a
Well,
true
and there's another interesting tidbit in that we're just launching a month of multimedia, which is an awesome topic. And now it's, we can get back together in person again. Multimedia.
I pushed for it earlier, but it's always didn't take me up on it.
Whatever. We'll figure it out. It's fine. Let the boys adjust. I think they're going to be happy to be back in person more than anything. I know I saw a lot of nods. I saw Nathan nodding vigorously when we announced this. So,
oh yeah, they're going to be psyched.
Okay. So that's going to be, hopefully, unless anybody has any objections, the plan of action for now, and we can come back in, I don't know, February 9th and ask ourselves roughly how it's going and if we want to try to have more than one patrol in the building at a time. Patrols are already planning outings. Go ahead, Joel. Sorry.
So it sounds like troop meeting wise, we're still going to be stuck with virtual based off of what I'm hearing risk tolerance wise.
If the weather's good, we could try to gather outdoors as a series of cohorts with a senior patrol leader in the middle. But is that really a troop meeting?
I think it still goes back to the survey. We're just of the parents' comfort, because we're just a small fraction of the whole group.
Right. In terms of the adults.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah,
and
I was going to say that I just checked the sun. It's not going to be light out enough to have outdoor meetings with a large group until after spring break. That's when the daylight savings time kicks in. So it's going to be dark.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what, Joel? There's these neat things called lanterns.
Yeah, but if you do a whole troop meeting, though, that means setting up a large area.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Yeah,
you could try to go to a patrol meeting.
There's so many fewer things going on activity wise. Like if we wanted to do it, we could think about could we start earlier, or could we, on the week that we do troop, could it be like a Sunday evening or a Friday evening, something where if we could start a little bit earlier.
Right.
Yeah, and not even, it doesn't have to take up your whole day, but just, moving from that 7 o'clock gets you some daylight.
Well,
I
think.
Well, wonderfully speaking, Dan has just offered all of his parking lot lights for us to use. Thank you, Dan. Sorry, Dave. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think we could probably do a troop hike on a Saturday, just to stagger.
Yeah,
that way everybody could just see each other, kind of from a short distance and cover the same ground. And
that's a great idea. Yeah, Diane, do you want to add something?
It wasn't important.
Okay,
Squirrel.
It's all right.
One thing I do want to a little bit plant the seed. You mentioned that Washington is under stricter guidelines here and now.
That's my understanding.
Now
yes.
we still have 5 months until camp in Washington for the boys.
Yes.
And so I guess I hope that we're kind of watching to see where that goes. And I bet you there's parents that have questions about that with camp, like how that would look, because I think the deadline to sign up is this month?
No, it's March. I mean, we already have right now a reservation for 25 youth and 5 adults. That's on the books, and it's we need to make a further payment in a month and a week. It's mid-March, I think it is. I need to work with Christy on that. And right now on the troop wiki for the boys for Fire Mountain, we have, I want to say it was 13 or 14 youth signed up. And then that gives plenty of space for new scouts and other scouts to finally decide, oh yeah, okay, I'll sign up. I actually feel okay about Fire Mountain right now.
Good.
So we have a reservation. It's plenty big. I think if we have 28 scouts that want to go to Fire Mountain, we can probably expand that. If we have 18, you can probably contract it. I don't think it's going to be a problem.
Cool.
But Diane, you have a great point in that, and it's on me actually to do this, is to have some sort of an adult discussion about what summer camp is going to look like based on what we know today, which is still a bit hazy, to be honest.
Yeah.
Mount Baker had a thing, and they answered different questions than our council answered for what is camp going to look like. It's still going to be cohort, but merit badges, I don't know. I mean, I sent you the thing that from 2018, right? And I don't know if that's what they're going to offer. Maybe not. I have no idea.
Well, I don't know if it was you that said this, or maybe I just thought this. Like maybe it would be a camp where the merit badge, like your cohort picks a couple merit badges and they do it as a cohort or something.
It's more than a couple. They're going to pick the cohort. They're going to pick by cohort, and they'll have like groupings essentially. And the impression I got was, if your cohort picked like nature for the morning, you'd have somebody teaching mammal studies, somebody teaching something else, and somebody teaching soil and water conservation. And you can go in your cohort and pick 2 or 3 of those, or one of those 2 or 3, right? That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
That's my initial understanding, is that it's going to be cohort based and it's going to be groupings of merit badges.
Mm-hmm. So
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I got it. I have a picture in my mind.
Okay.
I
can't guarantee that's how it's going to be, but that's how it was explained to me and how I understood it, for what it's worth.
Well, and when we get the wave of all the new parents, it's like that's where everyone regroups, and we probably have to talk about dues, because I don't think we've paid dues forever, or
you had dues taken out of your scout account in October, I think it was.
Yeah,
we did fall dues. It was just recently. Christy took care of all that. We're all good.
Well, she lets us know
Christy.
if we're deficient, right?
Right. I'm here. I'm listening in. Yeah, we did fall dues, just not spring. And I think with camp and the potential for doing more of the outdoor camping and stuff, we'll probably do spring again this year.
Right. And I owe Christy a process for our adult leaders to make sure that we get through, so that she isn't overwhelmed by receipts and dated stuff. So that's coming, since we're going to be camping again soon. That's on my plate. So, okay. These are good things. Anything else in terms of things we need to do, or thoughts or questions we need to answer at this point?
I have.
See y'all at Merriweather.
Hold on. Let's let Dave go. Go ahead, Dave.
I have one thing that's sort of kind of related to the last discussion. I also received an email today from somebody at council about doing a merit badge.
Oh, Jennifer Mooney.
Yeah, I got
that. Over spring break.
Okay, that's individually. You got that because you're a merit badge counselor. If you'd wish to participate, go for it. Not required.
I understand. What I was going to say, though, is I'm not a big fan of large merit badge classes. Okay. I'm willing to do some merit badge stuff over spring break. I would love to see it for our troop. And so if I was going to give a class, I'd rather have
our scouts
be in that. And in fact, we could do it in person in the Pilgrim Gym.
That's an interesting idea.
That we're interested
or
in
outside.
We could do our own little show.
That's an interesting idea.
I'm just throwing that out there to kind of chew on, but I could easily dedicate a day on spring break. Or
do we have to worry about mixing cohorts?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm the downer.
No, I think that's worth asking the question, especially if we start meeting and we try to do something virtual like that, because we don't want to mix cohorts. Is that going to be disappointing? No, it's a good idea. It's worth considering how we do that. Thanks for bringing it up, Dave. And I tend to agree with you. I mean, I know that some of our families have participated in those merit badge-a-paloozas. I'm not going to tell anybody not to go to one, but it's not my thing. So I don't know.
Yeah, they come out of it without really knowing the material.
Okay. No, hey, Joel, would you like to float that past James and or the PLC if that's of any interest. If it's of no interest to the scouts, then it's not worth us going
Well,
through.
I think we first need to establish functionally how that would work
Yeah.
before we, start getting their hopes up.
And I know that Amy's been successful in doing some merit badges over the past few months, but there have been a very self-contained cohort, so it's kind of a different deal. Yeah, let's cogitate on that one. We got a little bit of time to figure that out. Let me go around the horn here and make sure that everybody doesn't have any questions or further concerns. Diane, you're my top left square. You good?
I talked plenty tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Dan, how you doing over there? Dan, do you have a mute button? There he is.
There it is. I found it. No, I don't have any other questions other than just getting the kids outside, getting them together and trying to, I don't know. It's been a rough time. Let's try and end it as quickly as possible.
All right. I agree. Catch some clams, right?
Yes.
Dave, any other things to add or subtract or multiply?
I said plenty.
Okay. Ellen?
I've got a game if anybody wants to play a game after. Still up on my screen.
Let me get through the list here first. Joel, how you feeling?
I'm good.
All full speed ahead?
Yep.
All right. Mr. Goey.
I'm with Dan. I think I want to get Damien off the screens, back outside with his friends as soon as possible.
I can't agree more. Mr. Vyers, how are you?
Same here.
Get outside, do the things.
Get out of the house, please.
All right, Ellen, let's play a game.
Okay. Do I have screen share ability? No. You gotta let me screen
there you
share.
go.
Is this a quick game, Ellen?
It can be.
Okay, go.
You can't play though, because you already know the answers.
This is being recorded, so.
Oh, it's a poll. You can turn the recording off. Now we can let loose.
All right, thanks for playing. Have a nice day.